Welcome to Eternal Journey, the podcast.
What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Eternal Journey, the podcast that talks about all things Eternal with a focus on limited play. I'm your host, Jedi, and today is episode 43 of the podcast, and we have a 2 for 2 going on today. One, we're going to be discussing the Flames of Xulta draft archetypes. Part 1, that's right, there's so many. We wanted to make sure we had enough time to cover them all, so we're breaking up into 2 sections. And the other 2 is the fact that I have 2 special guests with me today on the show. Both of them have been on the show before, and so they're making their comeback. So I guess it's a 2 for 2 for 2? Triple 2? I don't know. Anywho, moving on. So the winner of the Handpicked Draft Tournament, a fantastic technical player, learning the ropes just as well as we are. I'd like to welcome my good friend, Darth Herman 2. What is up, buddy?
What is up? How's it going?
Going pretty good, man. Going pretty good. How are you doing this week?
Not too bad. Hanging in there.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I can understand that. And next, the competitive brewmaster himself, bringing all kinds of relic mastery as well as Zoltan counterplay, and you name it, this man has done it in all kinds of competitive fashions, not just casual brews. I have another great friend and name and the bane of the Misplay podcast, Johnholio. What is up, buddy?
Hey guys.
How are you doing today, man?
Pretty great. Had a wonderful Thanksgiving, little recovery day, but yeah, just great.
Fair, nothing wrong with that. So I gotta admit, I wasn't planning on mentioning it, but I just finished the Misplay podcast yesterday, and of course you were mentioned on it. So how does it feel to knock out both members of the Misplay podcast of their respective competitive goals in one tournament?
Terrible. It feels terrible. These guys are my friends. I was hoping to not even play them at all, and then yeah, that did not work out according to plan at all.
Yeah, it is pretty rough. I totally understand. I actually had a conversation with Mediocre about this as well, because like going back to my Magic days, there, eventually when you're in the tournament scene, you see familiar faces, and you befriend some people, and there's been more than one top 8 where my roommate or I have knocked one or the other out of contention. So it is what it is. Like, obviously you hate to see your friends until maybe the top 4 or top 2, but sometimes it happens. So
yeah, at that point it's unavoidable, but yeah, exactly, it is what it is.
Sweet. So now I guess well, never mind. I'm not even going to start that. Never mind. I'll move on. I was going to start a little bit of a brawl, but I was like, Farming Eternal Misplay already have that. So speaking of which, real quick, shout out to Farming Eternal, the podcast, as well as the Misplay podcast. Those guys are absolutely phenomenal resources for things Eternal. Farming Eternal focuses on limited, while the Misplay focuses on constructed play, but they're all aimed towards getting you better at this great game of Eternal. So shout out to Patumaro, Hats on Lamps, Ben Gracier, Barefoot Farmer, Johnholio as well, and being behind the scenes once again, and Mark and Jason, Parmalee and Gato Sujo. Which segues into my content. That's right, you can catch all this great stuff to include the video version of this show on YouTube. So we're slowly working our way up to subscribers to get to the point where I can have my own IP or address, but in the meantime, it still just have to use that search bar. Go to EJthePodcast or Eternal Journey, and my stuff will come up to include draft videos, sealed videos, ECQ videos, all the good stuff, events. Every time there's an event, I try to participate in it, so you guys can figure out whether you want to participate in it or not. So definitely give it a look out. And of course, you can catch some of my live content on there if you aren't able to make my stream schedule. And speaking of stream schedules, you can catch me streaming live every Sunday, Monday, Tuesday at twitch.tv/Jedi_EJ. And speaking of Twitch, look at that. I am on fire today. Every Sunday, and actually this week, I'm going to be trying out Monday night as a scheduling thing. I do a cube draft. So I won't get too much into it on the podcast because I've already eaten up plenty of time. But long story short, you are drafting 5 packs of a set that I created on my own in the game of Eternal. We go to the Eternal Warcry cube generator, the Stever Cakes was kind enough to generate for us, along with Cassandrith. We draft a deck, and then we battle it out live on stream. So it is completely free to join and a ton of fun. If you are a limited player and want to change up your game, check it out. This week's Cube Draft, should I have the ability, the time to make it happen, and the synergies, will be a tri-faction cube. It's something that I stole from Magic Online. So it will be Fire Primal Shadow. That's right. Makar factions will be in the cube, and that's it. So no Combre to be found. Let's try it out. Let me know what you guys think. And the last preliminary segment of the introduction is our subscriber shout out. Sadly, we have no new subscribers this week. No worries at all. I am totally okay with that. Slowly but surely we are growing, but I want to give a shout out to some love to all my returning and resubbing Jedi Padawans. You guys are fantastic. I really appreciate it. The continued subscription to the Jedi Order means that I am doing something right. And so I want to continue. Ooh, actually, you know what? Spur of the moment, I will actually audible. I did get 3 people to friend me in game to tell me that they are really enjoying the content. So I'm going to give them a shout out right now. If I can, I totally screenshot it to make sure I can. So I'm going to do that. And you guys are going to bear with me because it's my show. I mean, I'm not trying to be that mean. You guys can really react. It's okay. All right, so first person is Red Clip, which is from South Korea. South Korea, thank you so much. Definitely enjoying the content. Then we have, nope, that's, I don't know why I screenshotted that one. So many screenshots. And Dude Monkey, thank you so much for the shout out. And tell me, oh man, I don't, wait, I have one more. I think I do. I totally tweeted about it too. Where do we have it? Oh no. I know, I'm not gonna edit this out either. I'm gonna have people like totally be tuning in while I'm spanning. Johnholio,
didn't you put it on the one you're talking about? You put on the Misplay podcast, like, hey, we're doing a good job. Or
oh, there you
like
go. Cry Lorenzo. There we go. Got it. Yes, Cry Lorenzo are the 3 people that have taken the time to friend me and let me know that all my content is not being shot out into the void, but actually someone is consuming it. So thank you guys so much. But all right, that is it. I'm gonna call it here. That is all our preliminary stuff. Thank you guys once again for being on the show. I hope you guys packed a lunch because it's going to be a long one. And I mainly mean you, John, and Darth. Not me. I'm fine. Plus, the listeners can always just hit pause.
It shouldn't be too bad today, right?
No, not at all. All right. So this leads us into our pack 1, pick 1, guys. So this one's going to be a fun one, kind of medium pack, but sometimes I think it's okay. I try not to cater these to have like a very interesting pack. I kind of randomize it just like we would in a regular draft. So since I have both of you this time, I'm going to keep a little quiet on my end, simply describe the cards for our listeners, and you guys can give me your opinions on cards. And yeah, so let's start off with, oh wait, let me open the pack. That's all the... It's all the shift stone going to my account. All right. First up, we have Misery Walker. This is a 2/3 unseen at common for 3 Justice Primal. And that's it, unless you have a curse. If you have a curse, then Misery Walker gets flying and lifesteal. Darth, start us off.
I mean, it's a good card if you're in the curse deck, so I wouldn't first pick it, I don't think. But it has won me a few games. You know, an army of 2/3 flying lifesteal is pretty good.
Oh yeah, I had a draft where I literally, just out of curiosity, I think I was like potentially going into the curse and just didn't see the primal, and then in pack 4 we passed like 4 of these guys. I was like, oh gosh, so painful.
I've noticed like if you're gonna be in the deck, pack 4 is where you're gonna pick up a lot of the common ones potentially for it. So yeah, it's a good pack 4 card, I think.
John, where are you at?
Yeah, I agree completely with that. I'm not looking to first pick this guy, but I mean, if you're already leaning towards curses, you're going to want to pick up as many of these as you can.
Okay, cool. Moving on, we have Reverberating Strike. This is a 4 power, 1 primal fast spell at common. Deal 1 damage to each enemy. John, what do you think?
Yeah, this is a support card for the Spellcrag deck, I'd say. I'm definitely not looking to first pick this.
Yep, and
But-
honestly, there isn't much to it. We'll move on. I'll save you guys some trouble. But Darth, you can start us off on the next one. This is Zoltan Paladin. This is a 3/2 vanilla paladin at common for 2 and a justice. Where are you at on this guy or this gal?
Yeah, serviceable 2-drop. Not exciting first pick by any means. Yeah, but yeah, it fits in the deck if you're justice for sure.
Okay. Yep. John, anything to add?
No, it's a vanilla card. Man, this pack would have to be extremely bad for me to first pick this, but it'll go in any Justice deck for sure as a solid 2-drop.
So are you guys both on Misery Walker still right now?
I mean, so far.
Yeah, if it was like a 3-card pack, yes.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. Well, I don't think you're going to beat Misery Walker just yet. Next up, we have Wilderness Refuge. This is a common relic for 3 and a time, +1 maximum power. Spellcraft 3. Play Lost in the Mist, which I believe bounces a unit, right? This is a screenshot, so I can't look at the card, but yeah.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
So I thought this card was really bad, and then I had some good players ranked higher than me played against me later in a game to get rid of like an exalted weapon on a unit, and then just kind of set me back, putting that guy back out. And it's okay, I think now. Actually, I put it in a deck. It triggers muster when you do that. It's an interesting card, I think.
It's definitely better in a mustard deck. I mean, a ramp effect in time tends to be playable, and then it's not just a dead draw in the late game because of the spellcraft. So it is a reasonable card.
For me, it's one of my late inclusions. Like I don't knock the value of it. The issue I have with it is that it's at 3, and like I honestly feel, I really do feel like the time decks have so much more things going on at 3. If you even play 3, like honestly, sometimes you just skip 3 and go right to 4 with Intrepid Longhorn that we'll talk about later. So I do see the value. You guys are right. Like, I don't know. It's so weird because I think the reason why people value it is because on 3 it ramps you, okay, and then on 6 you don't need the ramp anymore, but then you still get a spell out of it. So that's something. But I don't know. It still feels kind of awkward to me.
Agreed.
All right. So does it beat Misery Walker?
No way.
No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
All right, next up we have Cruelty. This is the slow spell at common for 3 and a primal. Play inferiority complex on an enemy unit, which forces it to attack, or gives it reckless, I should say. And then decimate, deal 2 damage. Yeah, we're not worried about this. We can move on, right?
Pass.
Yeah.
Pass.
Okay, cool. Here we go. This is one that Cassendrath and Erlin have been big proponents for, and I've kind of started to lean towards it. We have a Fervent Siphoner. This is the 1/2 cultist at common for 2 and a shadow. It has Exalted. Then it reads, when a player discards a card, Fervent Siphoner gets a +1 attack this turn. So of note, it triggers off of every card. So should you play, like, for example, Sunset Priest, it will get a +6/+0 that turn, along with melees and things like that. So John, where are you at on this guy?
Yeah, this is a pretty powerful card, like deceptively powerful. I think when the first set came out, I was just kind of glossing over this one, but it's basically a crystal dirk at its worst that can attack every turn that your opponent is scared to death to block this thing. If you have any discard support, the value of this goes way up. Discard as a combat trick is a really fun thing that you can do with it too. Like I think you just mentioned melees. I believe that's fast spell as one example.
Mm-hmm.
I mean this is a first pickable card, but that's probably not going to be my choice.
Got you. So you're still on Misery Walker then, even through all this?
Well, I mean, okay, so I think I would first pick this over Misery Walker, but, I can see the rest of the cards in the pack here, so.
Okay, fair enough. All right, moving on then. We have a Rainfall Accord. I guess we could talk about this one because, like, I've played one of these. Rainfall Accord is a fast spell at common for 3 and a primal. It says draw 2 cards, then discard a card. And obviously, there are some decks that actually take advantage of the discard effect, like Fervent Siphoner that we just talked about. I'm reluctant to play it. I'm not like, yeah, we got there, but I have played it in decks. How about you, John?
Yeah, it's more it's very replaceable in limited, unless you have just some bombs that you are just desperately trying to dig for as your strategy. Um, Generally, card advantage is always going to be good, but taking a turn off to do this in this format that could just be the nail in the coffin for you if you have to take an early turn off. You can just get run over in this format.
The one thing I will say is I do like the fact that it's a fast spell. That does give you the slight option that you can hold up a trick, and then if your opponent plays around the trick and nothing happens, then you could still do Rainfall of Accord versus having to eat up a main phase to do it. But I don't know, it's still kind of medium. Darth?
Yeah, I mean, agreed. The value does go up if you have other good reactive fast spells that you can hold up at the same time for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and then okay things to discard, I guess, where you get like some value out of that. Yeah, it's okay. I don't think did Fervent Siphoner take over Misery Walker? Sorry, I was out there
It did for
a
me.
bit. Yeah, likewise. Okay.
Okay.
It's still the best card so far, I think.
All right, and our last common is Vine Petal Creeper. This is a 4/4 Mandrake at common for 5-time muster, +4/+4, and endurance this turn. Darth, what do you think about Vine Petal Creeper?
It's okay. I mean, if you have some muster triggers, you can kind of get someone out of nowhere with it. When it's like you've already cast what is the enchantment, whatever it's called, a curse already or something like that, and then you have a fast spell like a combat trick waiting, then it could be pretty brutal, especially with like a Omri's Choice or something like that. But I don't think it's better than Fervent Siphoner though.
Yeah, there. I believe it was Hats on Lamps did mention, I think on the Discord, comboing off with like with the killer spell, and then an exalted unit. So the spell will count. The killer spell will count towards the spell. Then they'll kill something small or trade with the exalted unit. Then putting the exalted weapon on the Vine Keeper that triggers the muster because it's a weapon or attachment, and then you get a 9/9 endurance Vine Keeper with killer or whatever. But I don't know. I feel like that's best case scenario for it.
Agreed.
It's super cool, and you totally feel like you did it when you do it. But I mean, how many games are you gonna lose with Vine Petal Creeper before that happens?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely replaceable.
All right, so let's move to our uncommons. We'll start with just a basic Skycrag insignia. Gain a fire and a primal influence. Depleted if you have any cards from other factions in your deck. So if you have any 3-faction action in your deck, then it will come in depleted. If you are strictly 2 factions, then it comes in refreshed, readied, undepleted. What do you got? I mean, is this first pickable for you guys or not really?
If there was literally nothing else in the pack, then sure. But not in this pack, no way.
Yeah, no. I mean, like, I'm looking to pick those up a little bit later for sure.
All right. Next up, we have a Dramatic Exit. This is the slow spot uncommon for 5 and red or fire. Give one of your units +4 attack and exalted. But there's more. Sacrifice it at the end of the turn, so it guarantees you to get an exalted trigger. Where are you guys at on this? Let's start with you, Darth.
I probably picked this over Fervent Siphoner. I don't like having too many of these, but I think one is fine, and I'm not opposed to being in fire, so it probably takes the first pick so far for me, and it's pretty versatile. You can put it on a unit that's like already pumped in another way, and it can become a pretty awesome weapon that you're going to put on something else when it dies. So yeah, I like that card.
Yeah, and you can also just put it on anything that you want to die as well.
Yeah, good point.
you know, sometimes we are living in a cursed world. So sometimes you're going to have a unit that's cursed and you're like, well, I can't really do anything with it. Well, this lets you cash in that unit in a way that's profitable. So,
Yeah.
It's a very powerful effect, and especially if you can combine it with some other powerful keywords, such as, unblockable or lifesteal, then the value goes up even higher on this.
yeah, that is one of the sweet combos with it for sure. If you can time it just right to where a unit emerges and you do that, so now it has unblockable on it. Oh, so good.
Yeah, I've seen people do some busted stuff with this card.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And it's good with absolutely everything. I mean, absolutely everything. You worst case scenario, you put this on a 1/1, you're still giving a +5/+1 to something, but you could put any kind of shenanigans on this. It's just like, oh my god, what am I supposed to do now?
Yeah, and the only downside is just that it does require some setup. You have to have the unit to sacrifice and the unit, to put the weapon on, which, if you're behind, this card is pretty bad.
Yeah, without a doubt. But I mean, it is what it is. It's like high risk, high reward sometimes, you know?
Exactly.
All right, and then our final uncommon is a Dread Hellkite. This is the 4/3 Nightmare Dragon uncommon for 4 Shadow. Has flying, it has deadly. It has summon, play cowardice on an enemy unit, which means it cannot block. Right? Yeah, it can't block.
Correct.
And sometimes I get confused with the humility one from, not humility, right? Is it timidity from the accuser? That unit can attack.
Yeah, timidity.
But there is a very important line of text in between those two, and that is Dread Hellkite can't block. So, Johnholio, where are you at on the old Dread Hellkite?
I like this card. I think its stats are great. Its abilities are relevant. I'm pretty high on this, honestly, and I think this might be my first pick for this pack so far.
Okay.
Like, it's kind of like Dramatic Exit, like high risk, high reward. Like you say, it can't block, so if you're behind and you're not winning the race, this is not going to do much for you. But hopefully you're playing this in an aggressive deck, and this just helps you continue smashing face and win the race.
Yeah, it is a must answer threat for sure. Like, unless you are really losing the race, this coming down typically requires an answer from your opponent one way or another.
Right, and because of its relatively high stat line, it's gonna always trade up in the air.
Well, and then plus the cowardice is not something that, it gets whatever potential blocker they might have out of the way at the very least.
Right. So if they only have the one flying blocker that it happens to be large enough to actually block this thing, you just slap cowardice on it, and they have to find another answer.
Mm-hmm. Where are you at on this guy, Darth?
I like the card in an aggressive deck. Is you guys mentioned it's a great 4-drop. It's great on curve, great later in the game, and takes out their best blocker. I just don't like being so locked into trying to draft an aggressive deck after my pick one.
This does pigeonhole your strategy if you want to go with it.
Not like if you're willing to not get married to your first pick, and you can take a flyer on it and be like, okay, what comes in the next packs, and see if an aggressive deck is open. Because if the aggro deck is open, it's pretty good at steamrolling people and getting to 7 wins. So I'm not opposed to this as a first pick. I just don't think I would do it as a first pick.
Okay, so we have one on Dramatic Exit, one on Dread Hellkite, but we do have a rare. It's a legendary. So let's see if this spicy little card will sway either of you guys' opinions here. We have Vicious Rejuvenation. This is a slow spell at legendary for 8 triple shadow. Oh man, this better be good. Swap your health with the enemy player's health. Oh man, let the memes begin. All right. I won't lie. I've played this in Constructed. But that's about it. Any of you guys have an opinion on this card?
That's a hard pass for me. That's way too risky of a proposition. I very rarely even make it to 8 power in draft, especially in this format. Um, and then, I mean, the number of other things that have to be going in a certain way for this to be good. It's I don't want to be, trying to get my life total low while not chipping away at the opponents, right? Like, want to be racing or just winning. So this is not a card for me.
Yeah, like it's really interesting because the card wants you to be on the back foot and losing, but it also wants you to get to 8 power, and I feel like those two strategies don't really work well together.
Yeah, and this can be a good card in constructed. Like I've played one off of a Makar's Listener, for example, and when you're already in that situation and you get offered this thing, you're like, sure. But I'm not trying to base my draft strategy around something like this. No, thank you.
All right, so it looks like I will have to be the tiebreaker here. And do you have anything to add, Darth?
No, just that I think I'm 100% positive that I've had that as a first pick option before, and I don't remember what I took over it. But yeah, I don't. Unless you really need one for your collection, no judgment if you do grab it just for your collection's sake. But I would definitely pass for sure.
Oh yeah, I still do it. I still do it on stream.
Right.
I have no problem admitting. Plus, I don't know if I'm not sure if I'm good at drafting or bad at it, but I always seem to have plenty of playables. Even when I kind of have a bit of a like wild crapshoot the first pack, I still end up picking a lane and getting plenty of cards passed to me. And so I don't mind taking a pick, especially a legendary. When it comes to, not that I'm free to play, but it just you'll never get a return on that. That's like getting a free legendary is a really good deal. Plus, worst case scenario, if you're that person that was trying to be free to play, dusting that legendary automatically gives you a rare automatically. So
absolutely,
might as well. I don't knock it whatsoever. So,
yeah, if like the dramatic exit and Hellkite were, I don't know, one of them was maybe Ilaz's choice, and then the other one is some other fringe playable card, then I'm thinking maybe some Shiftstone in this pack.
Yeah, actually, maybe, yeah, that's a good point.
Because this is a pretty medium pack overall.
Yeah, 100%. And sometimes I feel like that's actually kind of nice because it allows you to be more open versus, especially in this format where the staple cards, or not the staples, but like the signpost cards are Heart of the Vault style influence, triple one color, triple of another. They can really force a couple of your first draft picks where you might not see something because you might want to try to play those cards. Granted, I've sometimes played them and I've sometimes abandoned them based on the packs I've gotten, but sometimes having the first two packs be kind of medium opens you up to other stuff later on.
It helps you recognize what is open in that pack as opposed to just getting married to your very good first pick.
Yep. I think for me here to just be a tiebreaker, I'll probably end up going with Dramatic Exit. Reason being is I'm medium on Dread Hellkite because in my experiences, both playing it and playing against it, it's about 50-50 whether it's a bomb or not. Half the time I'm like, oh god, this is great, how am I supposed to deal with this? And then other times I'm like, that doesn't really, okay, that's fine, hit me for 4 and I'll come back and kill you. Or and of note, it has 3 health, which means there's quite a few things in this format that can kill it. So that's another thing as well. Plus like you guys mentioned, it's a little more specific, the archetype you want to draft around it, as well as it being double shadow versus single fire. So yeah, I think for me personally, I'd pick Dramatic Exit, but I would not fault anyone for taking either card. Like I said, Dread Hellkite has won plenty of games, and so has Dramatic Exit. So I'm a conservative drafter. I like to try to stay as open as possible. My first couple of picks, unless it's clear as day, pick 2, 3, and 4 are pointing in a direction. So, but I mean, that being said, once again, taking Dramatic Exit wins games, but it needs some setup versus Dread Hellkite. For the most part, as long as the board state is somewhat favored, it's going to win the game on its own.
Right. So, yeah. If I'm first picking that, I'm gonna definitely look at the next couple packs and see what's open, because like we mentioned, that you really have to be in some kind of aggressive deck for this to be a good card. So Not just Stone Star Dragons, not just, it requires more synergy.
Yeah,
So
for sure. All right,
yeah,
thanks.
if I first pick that, I'm definitely staying open going forward still.
All right, thanks guys, appreciate that. That was our pack one pick one there. Hope you guys got a little something out of that. So that is it, which means it leads us to our main topic. So today we are going to be doing a breakdown of the Flames of Xulta archetypes. Now these are decks that you can slightly synergistic, slightly just kind of work together decks and themes that they built into this draft format. They are by no means written in stone and something you have to do, but it gives you an idea of what these color pairings are trying to do and how to kind of maximize your picks. Now there are several, so we're going to break this down in a two-part series. Today we're going to be covering Stone Scar Dragon / Sacrifice, which I'll a little snippet. This is actually my personal most fun deck to play, if that's correct English. I think this is the deck I do. I'm not saying by far it's the best, but it is the one that is most fun for me to play. I think there's a lot of interesting interactions and layering for it. The next up is Rakana Onis, which is just all around aggressive value train. And then we're going to be covering both time decks in the form of the public enemy number 1 Combre, which I think everyone can agree on is the number 1 color combination, not only by what people feel playing against, but also confirmed by the Farming Eternal spreadsheet. Do you guys agree?
Yeah,
definitely.
So that one's kind of honestly just really a good stuff deck. So we're not going to spend too much time on it. And then we'll wrap up the show with Elysian Muster, which is another controversial archetype, I guess, because Muster is so underrepresented. But yeah, and that's gonna be this week's show. And then next week's show we'll probably cover things like Spellcrag, Mill, Curses, and I thought that was one more archetype that I wanted to cover, but regardless, that's fine. Maybe it was Muster, I don't remember. But that's what we're gonna be covering today. So we're gonna go ahead and dive right into it. Darth Herman, why don't you start us off with Stone Scar, my friend?
So Stone Scar, takes you in a couple of different directions potentially. It has the dragon synergies and then sacrifice synergies.
Real quick, sorry, just for our new listeners, Stone Scar is the Fire and Shadow faction. So just FYI. Go ahead.
Indeed, Fire and Shadow, which takes you to Combust, which is a very powerful. These are some payoffs. So let's go over some payoffs first, which are Combust. It's the 1 fire, 1 shadow. Sacrifice a creature to destroy any. Unit to destroy any unit. Soul's Fury, which is a common in the Flames of Xulta packs. Sacrifice a unit to do 4 damage to any target, basically. And then Marsh Dragon, which is the 3/1 Shadow Flyer, 5 with 1 shadow, I believe. Sacrifice a unit. When it enters the battlefield, you don't have to, but you can. You gain life with the amount of units that you have in your void. And then in the curated packs, you got Ravenous Thornbeast, which is the 3/3 that kills a unit when it comes into play, makes it a 5/5, and Devour, which is a kind of a utility spell you can use to kill off a unit that's already has a curse on it or something like that. But those are some of the payoffs. I couldn't think of any more really that work from the common perspective. I don't know if you guys can think of any that I'm not thinking of there.
No, you pretty much hit it. I think the biggest payoff would be Marsh Dragon, obviously having a big flyer that not only gains you life, but can defend well and get in there. Then obviously Combust just being clean removal, especially when you have, which I'm sure you're going to talk about in a moment, cards that you don't really mind sacrificing. So it's not necessarily costing you 2 cards. It's only costing you like a card and a half or a card and a third.
Yeah, exactly. And then with the uncommon payoffs, you have Grenade, which is the sacrifice a unit to do 3 damage to a unit and the controller, I believe, if that's the spell exactly. Burnout, right? Sacrifice a unit to do 5. Is that right? Something like that? Am I right on that?
Go ahead. I'll double check while you continue.
You have Befoul, which is in the Flames of Xulta packs. Sacrifice 2 units, and you get a 7/6 Dire Beast, the one that gets unblockable if it does the 7 mastery.
Banewolf, I think.
Banewolf.
Grenade is sacrifice a unit to deal 3 damage to an enemy unit and 3 damage to an enemy player.
And then what about Burnout?
Okay, Burnout.
Yeah, I can't remember if Burnout is 4 or 5.
Burnout is 5 damage to an enemy, so it goes unit and face.
There you go. And then Befoul, we were going over that. That happens to be 2 7/6 Bane Wolves, you said, I think. If you have if your opponent or any player has 10 or more cards in their void. So that can be a really good sacrifice payoff later in the game. And then to a lesser extent, the Repulsive Gorger and Direwood Prowler. I don't really like those cards so much, but I guess they do offer you a sacrifice payoff.
I think Direwood Prowler is quite strong just because a 5/5 for 6 is just slightly understated, but not by much. And the fact that you're getting 2 cards off of it means that, I mean, I don't know, I feel like it's going to be an automatic 3 for 1 from your opponent, if that makes sense. I actually do like Direwood Prowler, but it's also experience. Like, I haven't been able to play it too much in this format, but I feel like it's still pretty. I don't know. What's your experience on it, John?
Yeah, I just had to go look up this card. I've had it in one deck. I like this as a sacrifice payoff. Getting 2 cards for trading in like a 1/1 Grenadin or something is a pretty legit payoff, and you're left with a 5/5 body, which is a reasonable stat line.
That one costs 6, right? And then the Repulsive Gorger is 7.
Yeah, I agree with you. The Gorger, I think I had a chance to draft it like twice, and both times I just passed on it.
Yeah.
Right, the Gorger's the dinosaur guy.
Yeah. The 7/4 sack deals -1 to everything. Or all your opponent's stuff.
Yeah, I'm a lot less excited about this one.
But go ahead, please. Go ahead, Darth.
So those were the sacrifice payoffs, basically, that you can get. Now, you're going to need cards that are going to help you pull off some of these sacrifice shenanigans. Exalted units work good for this. In Shadow and Fire, you have the Razor Wire Totemite and the Fervent Siphoner. Those are good cards to sacrifice because you're going to get the weapon on something. You can use Warhorn for this because it'll create you card advantage and give you Onis that you can sacrifice. The Cinder Matoda, which is a card that crosses over into the Dragon deck, but that's a great card to sacrifice. It holds off the ground while you're trying to build your bigger board, and then you get a dragon out of it when you do find a way to sacrifice it. And then in the curated packs, you have Manufacture and a Recogulator. I didn't put one on here. I forgot to write it on there. Unkindness kind of serves this purpose as well. You just might not get your sacrifice fodder as soon as you would like. And it feels kind of bad to sacrifice a 1/1 flyer. But if you have to, you do what you got to do. Let's see here. Any enablers you guys can think of? Or any one of these you think are better or serve better function for the deck?
Not necessarily. You covered all the main ones, and I think I like the fact that Befoul is a good one because of the fact that when you have certain cannon fodder that you can sacrifice, like for example your Grenadins from Recogulator or Manufacture, then in a pinch you could Befoul early, where typically you want to make sure you get your 2 units out of it, make sure you're using units that later in the game that 2/2 is just sitting there you can use to upgrade. But when you're able to sacrifice like a third of a card or half of a card for a 7/6 early, then it ends up being quite effective. And I agree with you on Cinder Matoda, where it does a great job of gumming up the ground and making it difficult for your opponent. And what I've come to see is, especially when you get to like 5 power, and even when you have 6, your opponent's less inclined to try to kill your Cinder Matoda, even though it's an 0/4, and they just let you keep blocking because they don't want to give you the dragon. But if you're the sacrifice deck, you're going to be able to sack it when you're ready to for value. And I think it's great because you're essentially sacking nothing really, because you're turning in an 0-4 to a 6-6 dragon. Chances are you're probably going to be able to play it, and it's probably saved you somewhere anywhere between 2 to 8 life. So I like Cinder Tota quite a bit. And then obviously you mentioned Fervent Siphoner, which Johnholio went into depth earlier about it being very powerful. So this deck has the ability to capitalize on when you trigger it and things like that. So I do like that. Two things though, two payoffs that I personally like, which I'm not necessarily sure you guys could tell me where you're on or not. Technically there's 3, but one of them I'm not sure. I'll cover it as well. But I also like the Headman's Axe, and where is this guy? Umbran Deathwatcher. Umbran Deathwatcher is a 1/1 radiant at uncommon for 3 shadow, and it reads +1/+1 for each unit in your void. So obviously things like Cinder Tota and Recognitor can start filling up your void quite quickly. I forgot the 1/1. We'll talk about the 1/1 Wisp as well that draws you a card. I think, did you mention that one or no?
No, I didn't mention either one of those. Those are good sacrifice payoffs. I didn't really think of them as that. I thought of them maybe more as like a discard, like a mill payoff, because you're like getting cards in your void. But no, it fully works with 1/1s that are dying off that you're sacrificing.
You'd be surprised. And then Headman's Axe is a +0/+0 weapon at uncommon, which is strange for 5 shadow, but it reads +1/+1 for each unit in your void. And so despite not wanting to have a lot of these in my deck, I've come to realize that if you have any kind of evasive units, this Headman's Axe can really get going, because you can upgrade any one of your units. Like for example, you slap this on a Cinder Tota, you have 4 units in your void. Now your Cinder Tota is a 4/8, and now if they happen to kill it, you get a 6/6 dragon. So I like it quite a bit. They're both at uncommon, so I feel like you do have a chance to see it, versus like some of your rare payoffs in the form of Torrent of Spiders or Shadowlands Guides. They're really solid, but they are rare, so you might not see them as often. And then just to close the loop, let me mention that Wisp real quick. Let me make sure I get the name of it. Shoot, what is it? Dark Wisp? Is that what it is?
I think that's right, yeah. Dark
Wisp is a 1/1 for 2, and then in Tomb, when it dies, you draw a card. So it's a free sack out list because it replaces itself. But yeah, I actually like those 2 cards. What are your thoughts on them, Johnholio? The Headman's Axe
those are strong payoffs. Yeah, the issue is those are in the draft packs, so even though they're uncommon, they're still relatively scarce, I would say. But because of the double influence on them, like if whoever's passing you those packs is not very strongly into shadow, those are definitely getting passed.
Yeah, the crazy thing about it is because I think they are specific to this archetype. You actually, if they're in the packs, you're gonna see them.
Right.
So I think that's a bit of a bonus.
Yeah, and if somebody is passing you those, like that's a strong signal that you're in the right archetype for those packs.
Have you had any experience with either of those, Darth?
No, not too much with those. I was going to mention if you could find a time splash, there's quite a bit of cards in time that I didn't really write down. That there is a bunch of time cards because it's like the cultist cards that go in the cultist deck, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, I didn't really go over any rares or legendaries, but there definitely are some payoffs at that level of rarity that pays you off big time for, you mentioned one of them, I think. There's quite a few that if you can get going with sacrifice synergies, you can really get paid off with those.
Yeah, I think for just time purposes, we could probably keep it to just commons and uncommons, because that's what people are going to see more of versus the rares. You know, it's such a cute thing, and most of the time you're going to know if a rare is good for your deck or not. One alibi or two other cards I want to mention real quick is the Soul Collector. This is the 1/1 cultist at uncommon. So it is a cultist. It's 4 shadow. So again, double shadow. When another unit dies, Soul Collector gets a +1/+1. And Tomb, so when she dies, you gain health equal to the Soul Collector's health. Now, this card I'm actually not as high on as the other two, because the other two, it reacts to your void regardless, whenever it comes into play, and it fluctuates. Versus Soul Collector has to be in play and see the unit die. Now, granted, it does count both sides of the board, so that's the difference, right? The other two count your void only, but they count it whenever you play them. Soul Collector only Matt cares what she sees dies, but it's on both sides of the board, so she can get pretty big. But I think it's a little more of a hoop that you have to jump through, so I'm not super high on her. And then finally, Stone Scar Magus, which is the 2/2 for 4 at common. This is in the draft packs, but it's a 2/2 for 4, which doesn't seem great. But in Tomb, give an enemy unit -2/-2. It slight payoff, but sometimes that becomes quite relevant as well. So, all right, Darth, how would you play it? Like, what are you looking to do to build this deck, and how would you play it?
Well, it's not something I would like prioritize to start off a draft. You kind of just fall into it. For me, when I've had any of these cards work, is like you first pick a shadow removal spell, Fell Ritual, something like that, and then you see a second pick Warbrush Oni, something like that, and then a third pick Marsh Dragon. That's a sacrifice payoff, and then it just kind of lines itself up from there. And then how to play it, I would try to. I'm not as experienced with this deck, I think, as you are, Jedi. I haven't really used too many sacrifice cards other than the Soul's Fury and the Marsh Dragon and the Combust. So I haven't lucked out and had any grenades or burnouts or befouls in a deck that I would say is strictly a sacrifice deck. I've kind of just put befoul in any deck because I think it's still valuable. And then grenade and burnout, I've tended to not use those cards. So I really don't have success with this deck, the deck that I said the card to you before, right?
Well, all right, so let's audible a little bit. You did mention here that this can also, case in point, audible or flex into a dragon synergy deck. So how would you go about that? How does that work out for you?
Well, so going to the dragon cards, they're mostly rare, and then there's some uncommons with like the 2 common dragons, I believe, the Shadow and then the Marsh Dragon, and then the 4/4 for 6, I believe.
Cinder Dragon?
Mm-hmm.
Cinder
Dragon, and then the Toda, which helps you get a Cinder Dragon. This archetype is really driven by the uncommons, so it's a lot harder to get into. You'd have to really maybe first pick one of these cards and just kind of go for it from there, like Smoke Dancer and Vile Collaborator. Those are like the 2 biggest payoffs I can think of, where the Smoke Dancer gets +2/+2 for Dragon Ally, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And then Vile Collaborator gives all your dragons +1/+1 in lifelink, which I've just been destroyed by. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, that card is really good. Agreed.
Like when they pop it, you could pop it down late game, and you're like, "Oh, great!"
That card can help really swing a race.
I kill it on sight. Like sometimes I'm sure my opponents get me and they're like, "Joke's on you, I don't have any dragons," but I'm like, "Nope, I'm gonna kill it." I kill it as soon as possible. That card, it's just so good.
It's a really good card, and that might be the card worth trying to first pick and see if you could craft dragons around it, just because it's so swingy. The Teething Whelp, that's a card that's just good in any fire deck, right? I mean, you don't need any other reason to have that in your deck.
2/2 for 2 with massive upside. Yes, please.
Right. Yeah. Vorpex's Choice. I think I said that right. Lets you get a dragon out of your void, I believe. That's one of the choices. And then the other one, is that the one that turns something into a 3/1? Is it that one?
No, that's Geminon's Choice. This is the one where it's like an edict in Magic terms.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So, I mean, that works in this deck if you have dragons to get out of your void. The Slayer's Edge, the 5/2, that's a decent removal spell in any fire deck. And you get some dragon synergy off of that. The Dragon Forge lets you grab a weapon or dragon out of your deck. And that's pretty much it as far as the Flame of Xulta cards go. There's a bunch of random dragon stuff in the curated packs.
Yeah,
Like there's the good red dragons there's some good red rare dragons for sure.
The benefits to this deck, I think, at least when I've seen when drafting, is the fact that like you want Val Collaborator, and it's such a specific card that if you're not in the deck, you're not going to take it. So you actually can get these in the middle of the pack if no one's kind of jumped on it, which is a huge payoff. And Marsh Dragon, as great as it is at a price, and so it's one of those things where I feel like this deck can come together if you're really looking for it. And Voprek's choice, obviously, giving your opponent the choice of what unit to sack is not exactly the most powerful effect, but it does have the ability to somewhat immortalize or dark return one of your dragons or even a weapon, which is nice as well if you pick up a good weapon, like for example the Headman's Axe. Or if you pick up some rare weapon. There is times though when your opponent's going to Voltron up a unit, or maybe you've made some aggressive trades and there's only one thing on the board and you're able to choice them that way. So I do like that. And I had one more thing. Oh, and then of course File Collaborator goes absolutely amazing with our Nightmare Dragon. Oh, we just talked about it. What's the name of that thing again?
The Dread Hellkite?
Yeah, there you go. Dread Hellkite. Like that card, making a 5/4 lifesteal is just absolutely backbreaking.
That is premium.
It's
that card, I didn't even mention that card, but yeah, that card obviously goes well in this deck for sure. The 4/3, yes.
Yeah, the lifesteal on Vile Collaborator just makes it to where it just allows you, if you end up having a slow start, it gets you back in the game. And if you're kind of parity, it helps break that. If you're racing, obviously it's great. Vile Collaborator is really what brings the Dragon deck together, in my opinion. I mean, Teething Whelp does some work. Don't get me wrong. Totemite, the deck itself can play. And then obviously playing Stone Scar means you have access to the best removal, because Fire and Shadow, you get Fell Ritual, you get Cut Ties, you get Conflagrate. So you definitely have access to some pretty sweet stuff for sure. To Torture, there's another good one.
Yeah.
So I think the deck plays a little, you're trying not to get run over in the development, and then the mid to late game is when you're really hoping to capitalize, because at the end of the day, most of your payoff cards are going to be flyers. And so there's only so many 4/4 flyers and 4/3 flyers that your opponent can deal with. Heaven forbid you should make them bigger with Vile Collaborator, or just a huge 3/7 Marsh Dragon and stuff like that. So
And the Toda helps you ramp those big boys out too. That's a pretty key card. And then if you can get any of the sacrifice cards, which tend to fall your way, then you can like kind of merge the synergies and make a pretty sweet dragon deck that has some sacrifice synergies,
The one thing that we didn't talk about, which is actually the bridge between the two decks, because typically sacrifice decks have a little bit of go wide tendency because they need to have fodder, and they have several cards that make more than one unit, is the 7-drop dragon, the Hellkite, I believe it's called, that deals 1 damage, or causes every one of your units to deal 1 damage to the opponent.
Is that Hellfire Dragon?
I'm looking it up right now. It's funny because I could fire these off on stream all the time, but as soon as I'm doing the podcast, I draw a complete blank on the names all the time. But
and I'm the absolute worst with names for sure.
So what's your take on that card, Darth?
I was gonna add that card actually as a payoff for. It's kind of funny. It's a dragon.
Skyfire.
Skyfire.
Yeah,
Skyfire. Let
me read it off real quick for our listeners. It is a 7/4. Oh, let me put it on screen for our viewers as well. It is a 7/4 Nightmare Dragon at uncommon. For 7, fire has flying, and then of course summon each one of your units, deals 1 damage to the enemy player. A couple of things just to add on that: it does help trigger mastery, it does help trigger lifesteal, any kind of stuff that the unit cares about dealing damage. It will trigger because the unit itself is doing damage, not the Scoutfire. I mean, the Scoutfire Hellcat will do its 1 as well, but each one of your other cards is doing a damage. Just FYI. Okay, please continue.
I think that guy is that dragon is maybe you want 1. It's a good finisher, I think, for the sacrifice deck, especially if you can have some fodder that's digging it for sure. Let's see here. The other thing to mention with the dragon deck is you can splash primal. There's some dragon stuff in primal, and if you can get some fixing it, the Draconis is a nice dragon to throw in. If you can get it out like quicker than turn 7, it's pretty powerful, like even on turn 6.
What are the stats for it?
It's a 4/5 flyer for 7. It does the mastery 5. It puts a permafrost on something.
Yeah, it's a solid card for sure. Solid card indeed.
Pretty much the only blue card, other than there's some of the bigger blue dragons that you can get as well.
Yeah, in the draft packs.
Yeah, there's not really much other than the O3 Exalted, which I don't really like that, the O3 Exalted Dragon synergy guy.
Yeah, no.
Draw card, right? Yeah, that guy's not exciting at all.
Right.
All right, cool. Well, I think that's going to do it for our Stone Scar portion. If you guys have any further questions, by all means, hit us up on Twitter or on the Discord or in the comments below. Next up, we have Rakano Onis. So, Johnholio, how about you lead us off on this bad boy?
Sure. So, like you say, Rakano Onis. So it's kind of a tribal-ish deck, and Rakano being Fire and Justice. This is typically a straight aggro, or sometimes can be more of a tempo deck, but it's generally very aggressive. You're gonna want like we say, tribal synergies. So you're looking for almost every Oni, I think, in both the FoX and draft packs is pretty playable. There's not many that you're just gonna hard pass on. So I think some of the key cards to watch out for this deck. There's one big one, Acclaimed Artisan. It is such a key card for this deck. Like if you are getting past Acclaimed Artisans, you just keep scooping these guys up. I think for a top tier Oni deck, you're going to want at least 3 of these guys if possible. And then I don't know that there's a upper limit to how many you'll play in a deck. It's a 2/3 that gives other Onis +1 attack. It's 2 cost, I believe, and a fire and a justice for the requirements. So if you're early picking these in your draft, it locks you into Rakano and into the Oni deck pretty early. But so I want to see these being passed to me more than anything. Some other key cards.
Just to add on that too, if
Sure.
we can plug in Farming Eternal, which you do the spreadsheet for them now, it was recently mentioned that out of all the dual faction uncommons, this is the one that is the most represented in 7-win deck list by a margin of over 2 per deck, or averaging 2 per deck. So yeah, this is definitely one of the linchpins of the Oni deck. And like you just mentioned, when you're getting past them, it's a pretty clear sign that Oni is going to be open. And just maybe to get ahead of you, the one good thing I like about Onis as well is that you have a ton of Onis to choose from, both in all four packs, which is nice, versus some other of the synergies you're kind of stuck really relying on packs 1 and 4 to make it happen for you.
Definitely. Yeah, Acclaimed Artisan is just such a powerful card. It just gets better in multiples. As the game goes on, if you've been able to attack with these guys, they get exalted, and they buff your whole board. It's a marquee card for this deck. But that being said, almost any of the commons and uncommons you'll be happy to play that you see for this deck, such as the the Red Evangel, the Shavka Evangel. It's an Oni. It has Berserk, which lets you really mess some people up out of nowhere. Warbrush Oni, another great card for this deck. Oni Samurai, a little less so, but it's, I think, one of maybe two of one drops that you're gonna want to play in this deck. So you definitely pick up one or two of those if possible in the draft packs. And then there's like the Forgemark Scrivener and the Oni Stalwart, which are kind of strange to look at. You're thinking I'm an aggressive deck, and these are lower attack and higher defense cards. So it's a little counterintuitive, but they get better with weapons and buffs such as Warbrush Oni, which we just mentioned. So, and these guys, they just hold weapons very well. They're hard to remove because of their high health. And then there's top end for Onis. You're looking at Burning Claw, which is an Oni himself and has some good tribal synergy there. And then there's, if you can get any kind of flying in red and green, those are also good for top end, but not Onis.
So what are your thoughts on Scrivener? Because I have only played the card once, but I've had it played against me plenty of times, and I'm pretty below average on it. What about for you?
Yeah, it's not. I think the Stalwart is a little more just solid in any Justice deck. The Scrivener, you have to have its Oni friends on the board for it to be good at first, and its mastery is relevant, but yeah, I think the Stalwart is just slightly better in that slot. You're not looking to prioritize this guy, but again, these get much better with the more acclaimed artisans you have.
Yeah, because that buff stacking is just awesome.
Right. Yeah, I'm definitely not nearly as high on Scrivener, but it's like an uncommon. And so if you're getting past those, it's another sign that you might be in the right lane there.
Okay. Have you had a chance to draft this deck at all, Darth?
Yeah, this is a good deck, and I like how you put here. It's like 5 or 6 is even better. Like, is there a limit to the 2/3? It's just such a good card.
I don't think there is. I literally don't think you can have enough of them.
Well, I mean, because they even stack on each other, so
yeah, it's totally stacking. So it's like, what is there a better 2-drop you can have? And it's like, maybe just drop your unit, not your unit count, but your power count. Like, okay, we're going to 16. This has 10 2-drops. Like, let's go for it,
Yeah, I've seen a number of 7-win lists on the Farming Eternal spreadsheet with 5, 6. I don't know if I've seen 7 yet, but yeah, this doesn't seem like
challenge accepted.
A limit. Yeah, with the limit that you want necessarily.
Like, I've actually had pulled off 5 in one deck. That was the best one that I could do.
Yeah, and then when I go into Onis, of course, I don't get any of these guys.
I've been there too.
Yeah, even if you're not Onis, which it's kind of hard to be not Onis if you're in these colors, but it goes in any Rakano deck, so they're pretty hard to come by usually.
Yeah, if they're only helping each other, and no other cards in your deck, you're still doing it.
Right. Even if you have one, like a 2/3 that eventually will hopefully exalt onto something, even one is good,
Absolutely. And then there's just a couple other honorable mentions. The Green Evangel, the Kodosh Evangel. Sometimes that lifesteal can be nice if you're in a racing situation, and then Seasoned Drill Master, again, not an Oni, but helps get those Scriveners, Stalwarts, and Acclaimed Artisans their mastery faster. It's a 3/3 for 3. Really can't go wrong there. Then we can talk about some other support cards here as well. Flamekeeper is a very powerful one. I think it's a 5-drop, 4/2 Exalted Oni with Overwhelm, I believe.
Yes, and it gives Overwhelm as well.
Yeah, I think that's a very strong card. And then Minotaur Oathkeeper I mentioned earlier. It's another kind of enabler for a deck like this where you're wanting to be attacking each turn. Not an Oni, but just kind of another support card. And then you're looking for solid weapons, especially if you landed a Burning Claw or two. So you can replay weapons if your unit dies, so you're not just going all in and then losing your guy. Weapons you'll see pretty often are things like Longsword, Ruination Sledge, and Warhorn. And Warhorn has additional synergy because if you're actually landing those hits, you're making Onis as well. And then, of course, combat tricks go way up in a deck like this. Draw Strength, Finest Hour, and then Rampage.
Give me 1 second.
Sure.
Can you go elaborate a little bit more on Ruination Sledge? Because I actually think that card is starting to come up on value for me, and I'd like to see your opinion on it.
Sorry, which one?
Ruination Sledge?
Yeah, I mean it's all. I feel like any format I've played that in, it's always been a good weapon.
Can you break it down for our listeners, please?
Sure. I think it's a 3/1 as far as its stats, but it has a spellcraft play Ruin, which destroy an attachment. So attachments are very common in this format, especially very powerful attachments with exalted shenanigans of all shapes and sizes. I think this is the first format where I've been happy to actually play a Ruin in my deck, or a, Disjunction, or all the other flavors of that effect. It's going to have a target basically every game between weapons, exalted weapons, and curses as well.
Yeah.
So Ruination Sledge, it's a particularly aggressive one too. It's got high attack power. So if you can combine that with some sort of quick draw or evasion, that's going to be a powerful weapon just on its surface. But yeah, that Ruin attached to it, that's basically always got a target.
It puts it over the top, because just the 3/1 by itself, you can use that early on in the game to get your exalted going on one of your what are they? The acclaimed
Artisans.
Yeah, so it's pretty versatile in that way, where you can. It's kind of a decision in the game, like, ooh, do I want to hold on to this and wait, or that's a really good card for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so you were mentioning Rampage.
Yeah, so I think just any and all basically combat tricks go up in a deck like this, where you're wanting to be attacking every turn, every chance possible. Rampage is a particularly good one because there's some Berserk units that you typically end up with in this kind of deck. And then even Desperate Gambit is... I think that's better than I initially would have thought it would be. Just any and all combat tricks when you're dealing with Overwhelm and Berserk just go way up in value. And these are basically your removal. If you're playing this as an aggressive or tempo deck, just keeping the board clean and being able to attack every turn is a good way to go here. You can play things like Conflagrate, and then even what's the Justice card? Kill a unit with 5 or
Downfall.
Downfall. Yeah, I think that's even some reasonable top end in a deck like this.
Yeah, because by that point you're hoping your units are already deployed, so you just have power to burn.
And then, instead of getting stonewalled by that one big time unit, you got an answer for it, and you can just keep attacking.
So on here you have things like Rebuke and Storm of Feathers, which Storm of Feathers is a very interesting card. I've seen some people high on it, some people low on it. I've seen it win games. I've seen it do nothing. So what's your game plan with this deck? You also mentioned playing Oni Samurai, which typically is a pretty lackluster card. Are you just looking to get on the board as early as possible and just pressure opponent turn after turn? Or are you kind of more mid-rangey?
No, I think the best way to go with this deck is aggro as opposed to mid-range, and aggro in a little tempo maybe. If you can just establish on turn 1 with an Oni Samurai, and then Artisan on turn 2 makes that a 2/2 attacker, so it goes way up in that case. And then the war cries start to add up too. If you can establish early and just keep the pressure on with this deck, I think you're going to win a lot of games. And then yeah, like you just mentioned, stun effects, and to a lesser extent, while also being to a greater extent, Gaudy Showman, he's a body himself with a nice attack power and can help you push through that key turn of damage to trigger however many masteries you have available and things like that.
Mhm.
So those are kind of in that tempo category. Like they help you keep doing your game plan on curve and on time, to just hopefully blow out the opponent. Have like when you're on the back foot in this format, I feel like it's really hard to come back from, for a lot of decks. So I think these cards are pretty good in a deck like this as far as stuns and then just the showman's effect of getting a block, key blocker out of the way so you can make sure to push that damage.
How early, or I should say, never mind. I was gonna ask two questions at once. How willing are you to trade off units to get additional damage in? Are you that kind of aggressive, or you still want to play? You don't want to go into the attrition battle type thing.
Right. With this kind of deck, you're definitely not trying to late game it or have a war of attrition of any kind. Like I will trade off aggressively, if I'm not, if I don't have like combat tricks and things at the ready, just and like I'm making decisions as far as yeah, I mean you'll trade off a Warbrush Oni immediately, right? Because that doesn't have a lot going on for it later in the game. But I'm less willing to trade off things like our artisans, because those have more value if you can maintain their ability to attack. But for the most part, I'm trying to keep the opponent's board clean with a deck like this, just to help push damage consistently.
If you do get stuck in a board stall, like try to maybe keep your spell that's going to give the overwhelm, like the rampage, and try to get a draw strength or something to like push over the last points of damage if it's stalled out. Something like that on a board stall you can do. Or like the Storm of Feathers, I've seen actually E-Money uses that card a lot to very good success. So like that card's gone up for me, where before I was pretty much just passing that one,
Yeah, there's just not a lot of replacements for that in this deck, between the draft packs and the FoX packs. So just because of that, I think it's a reasonable card. Normally you'd want that to be fast speed or something like that, but then you're in primal. It's just.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It's like it goes up in value because there's nothing else that replaces it. Really.
It's just so on point for the strategy of getting in there early and often, and ensuring that damage continues until the opponent is dead. And then this is a deck where you have to consider race math and things like that. And I like cards like you mentioned in your Stone Scar breakdown, things like Burnout and stuff in a deck like this, where you have some kind of reach at the end of the game, between Berserk, and Overwhelm, and then just that last push. You get the opponent down, it stalls out. Well, now I can just throw my Oni at their face for 4 damage or whatever with one of those types of spells.
Oh.
And I think also something like Longtail Cavalry, I think, is pretty good in a deck like this, because if you do get jammed up on the ground, this will help make your, let's say you've weaponed up some Oni that now is not able to get through on the ground. Well, Longtail Cavalry can attack for a few turns, and then if that's already just doing the job, the opponent might reluctantly kill it, and then you move it over to an even bigger threat that's now attacking every turn in the air. So
yeah, it's this deck is just, it's something else. Like, I don't know. I've been absolutely ran over by it. And like you said, Feathers really wants to be like the last card you can, or the last spell you play that deck. It's, I don't know. It's like I feel like my opponents always have a better version of it than when I play it. But Yeah, this deck can definitely, it's the fun police for sure in the format. If you try to get a little too memeish with your deck building, this deck's gonna make you pay for it without a doubt.
Yeah, I think I've been killed as early as turn 4 by just a nut series of plays from my opponent on this Oni deck.
Sweet. All right, do you guys have any closing statements on this archetype?
No, not to derail us. Real quick on the Minotaur Oathkeeper. I'm just curious about that card a little bit. I like that card a lot. I've had decks that have as many as 4 in there. Is that a card that you guys think should be that many of in a deck? Or because it's kind of changing your game plan from like going wide with the Onis to like attacking with one at a time.
Yeah, I think exactly. I think it goes up in value if you have some strong evasive units that you are just going to be attacking as a solo. I think in general this is probably not best in a 6 artisan deck, which is the dream.
Right. Yeah.
But just having a few in the deck means you might have it on turn 1 or 2, at which time your 1 or 2 Oni that you really want to keep attacking and get that mastery going.
I mean,
have that leg up?
Is it though? Because like if you have two, let's just live the dream here, right? Go into magical Christmas land. Like you have the game stalled a little bit. You have 2 Oath Keepers and 1 or 2 artisans in play. Well, all of a sudden now your Oni samurais swing in like an animal, and they have to you have to answer it. Granted, to lesser extent if you have something like a longtail cavalry as well, but I mean, I could see some worlds. I don't know. I think there's a fine line. I have been crushed by multiples, and by multiple I mean as little as 2. Especially if you're able to do it with the evasive unit. But I mean, even then, it's still upgrading your unit enough where you're gonna trade. You're like, okay, I don't want to take a bunch of hits from this, so I'm gonna trade. But then all they do is tack in with the next unit. So it definitely. I don't know. I've been ran over by it, and I've seen that card do nothing as well. So it's a fine line because at the end of the day, it is still just a 1 drop.
Right. It's just a 1/1, right?
Yeah,
I think one could be good. I've had it in a deck where it's like let you swing in with the Oni Samurai, turn 2 into their 2 drop that you wouldn't have been able to normally do. So I mean, I do like it for that. But then also the Artisan lets you do that as well.
Right. Yeah, I think in the Oni deck in particular, you just rather have more artisans. But
it's such a fine line too, because I'm thinking about it. Early, it swings in for 2 on turn 2, and then it pumps everything else up to that, right? And even in the late game, you're like, oh, it's a 1/1 for 1. But sometimes that +1 is enough to let something else attack. And then other times, it doesn't do anything. And it is just a 1/1 for 1. And then once again, going back to your opponent or you having 2 of them, now all of a sudden giving something a +2/+2, sometimes that's a really big board breaker. So man, that card is interesting. The card is very interesting, especially when you have so much silence running around the format where you can clear up maybe the air to get in and stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah, you can get them so late. They're flying around those 2nd and 3rd packs always. I always see a bunch of them. Seems like.
What's the spreadsheet? Actually, if I could just,
I don't have it up.
I was gonna say, I'm like, we have a resource for that, but I guess we'll save that for another show. We'll add it to the show notes so you can hit us up with it next time. Look up and see how many of the 7-win deck lists actually run that guy.
It's one that I haven't been as high on in prior formats, and I've definitely just gone up in general on it here. But I think I like it more in other Justice decks as opposed to the Oni deck. Yep. Just in general.
Agreed.
All right, cool, guys. Well, let's get going just for time constraints. We still got a little bit to cover. And even though I don't have a time limit on these, I also don't want to go marathons like we do for the set reviews. We'll save that for our listeners for those rare occasions or rare, common and uncommon occasions. Boom. All right. Next up, we have Combray. Combray is public enemy number 1. Like I stated earlier, is kind of inherently considered the most powerful color combination. But sadly, there really isn't any like synergy for the deck. It's just straight up Combray good stuff. Like put Justice in there, put Time in there, and bam. Overall, the 2 best commons in the format are in these colors in the form of Draw Strength, which is the 1-cost fast spell that gives your unit +1/+1 for every unit your opponent has, and then you can decimate it to give the top 3 cards of your units of your deck a +1/+1. So that card in of itself is already busted, and then its counterpart is Grodov's Favored, the 6-cost 6/5 that silences a unit when it comes into play, which obviously ends up being quite good. And then the other 2 commons for the deck is Spiketail Kieran, a phenomenal 2-drop, 2/2 for 2, but then later in the game you could pay 6 to give it a +4/+4 until end of turn, as well as when it hits Mastery 6, it gives a +1/+1 to everything else, or to everything in play, including itself. And then finally, Archive Curator, which is the 1/4 flying, enter the battlefield, silence, or enter the board, summon. There you go, summon, silence an enemy or silence a unit. So all these cards are super powerful and at common, but once again, as you can tell, they all are easily splashable, and they just, they're just good stuff. That's what kind of giving you a hint. The fact that they are common means when you do see them late in the pack, somewhere between picks 4 and 7, it's a pretty clear indicator that those cards are open. I would even kind of consider it a signal when you see them 3rd and 4th. 2nd is a little hard because there could have been a rare, but very few cards in this format are worth taking over either of those 2. So when you see those, it's typically a sign that those are open. The payoffs, or I should say the uncommons that you're looking for in this archetype are Amory's Choice, which is the Combray choice. Once again, for 2, it is a fast spell, and it either gives a unit +3/+3 and Overwhelm, which the Overwhelm on it is extremely relevant. It also helps trigger Mastery, and then you can play that on offense and defense, and then as well as the second mode being to bounce or return a attacking unit into the enemy hand and silence the unit. So silence the unit and then return it back to the enemy hand, which is quite powerful effect as it is. And of course, Intrepid Longhorn is the uncommon unit for Combray, which is just a 2. So 2-time Justice, get a 3/3, which already is busted, but Mastery 6, so when this thing hits twice, you get to play a random sigil off the top of your deck. So it ramps you as well. Like, that card is just absolutely busted. Most decks you want to pick up I think so far the record is like 5 of them, and they're all great, absolutely all the time. So it's exactly what you want to be doing. As far as a little bit of one that was mentioned earlier, Seasoned Drill Master. This is a 3/3 for 3 in Justice. When it comes into play, it gives another unit +3/+3, which of course you can already tell combos off insanely well with Spiketail Kieran and Intrepid Longhorn. So massive synergy there in just the form of we're Combray and we've got the beats. The last 2 things I want to talk about are Steel Weave Shroud. This is the 2/1 attachment or weapon that you could place on a unit to give it a +1/+2, and then it also silences. So as you can tell, there's a ton of silence in this format and in these color combinations, which helps. Typically Combray is a little weak towards flyers. All that silence helps mitigate that, as well as neutralizing a lot of exalted effects. And then finally, the number 1 removal spell in in draft probably is Scorpion Wasp, which is the 3-cost 1/1 flying deadly unit with ambush. All of these at the common and uncommon level. And once again, there is no exact synergy. You're not doing anything. You're not being cute. You're just playing really good cards in a shell that can crush your opponent. So yeah, this deck is the nuts for sure. If you've played against it, any good version of it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There really isn't too much to go into it. Once again, the linchpins are it's tough because Draw Strength and Grodov's Favored are single influence, so they're easily splashable. So it's hard to necessarily say if these colors are open, but I do feel like it is fairly common knowledge of how powerful those cards are. So if you are seeing those, then it should be something you pick up. But obviously, if you see Emery's Choice or Intrepid Longhorn, those are very clear-cut signs that this archetype is open. And then LOL playoffs, like this deck needed any. But should you feel like you need to up the power level of your deck any, you can get a Kirin Ascendant, which is the Combrei rare. For 3 Combrei, you get a 1/3 flyer with lifesteal. And when it's summoned, it gets to destroy an enemy attachment, which is extremely useful in this archetype or in this format, considering curses as well as weapons like Warhorn and, of course, Lo and Behold Exalted Weapons. So that's awesome to have that tacked onto a flyer that has lifesteal. But the hits keep on coming. Mastery 4, right? Mastery 4? Pretty sure it's 4. It gets a +2/+2. So now you have a huge beater in the air that's gaining life and winning races. This deck is preposterous. It's so like oppressive. You're just like, yep, there you go. Like,
yeah, if any one of those commons that you mentioned was in our, pack one, pick one today, I would have easily snapped up any one of those over the choices that we had.
Yeah, it's funny because this is like your stereotypical draft deck, right? This archetype is literally what Limited is all about, where you're not doing anything flashy, you're just drafting a solid deck and it gets you there. But this deck is just so much the extreme to that it really is. You look at it and you're like, okay, this looks like a good draft deck. But then you play it and you're like, I am just absolutely wrecking everybody's day.
Yeah, it seems unfair. It's like, how is this good? And it's just all these commons.
It's like the biggest grown test or whatever is a turn 2 Longhorn. You're like, oh, great.
Yeah,
right?
On the play.
Oh.
That's backbreaking.
And then it's funny because honestly, and you guys have seen me on stream, every time my opponent is playing time and they're on 5 power, I'm like, okay, are we going to play into a silence effect? Are we going to play into the Grodov's favorite next turn? Because it's coming.
Oh, yeah.
So it's always like, well, I could play this flyer, this exalted unit, but it's going to get silenced next turn. So do we hold it? And 9 out of 10 times, sure enough, like, hey, there you go. There's a silence effect. We're like, ooh, dodged the bullet there.
We weren't planning for the second favored coming right after that one. Right?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, like, what are you going to do? Not play anything? Yeah.
You always expect another one, but no, you're not just going to play around that.
Well, I mean, you never know, because once again, now that the word's out how good it is and how easily it is to splash, I've seen plenty of people not be anywhere near in time and then get a late Grodov's favored in pack 4 and just be like, cool, we'll splash for it.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then the final the one other thing you can do at Uncommon is Kodos Sees All. Should you feel like you need a way to break a board stall, you can play Kodos Sees All, because obviously this deck can get you in the late game fairly easily, especially if you have Longhorns to ramp you. You play it, and then you just sit there on the board and let your 1/1 Griffins or 2/2 Griffins take over and smash your opponent. So, yeah, that's Combrei. Let me see what we're doing. We're already an hour and a half, so I'll tell you what, we're going to audible and move Elysian Muster to the next episode. So you guys will get 4 archetypes in the next episode, because like I said, I think under 2 hours is fair. And we've been doing pretty good so far. I don't mind. That's why I want both you guys on the show. I think it's going to be good interactions, but I do want to save our listeners some earshots. Let me know in the comments below, actually, how you guys feel about time limits and stuff like that. Like I said, I don't really lock myself into a time frame, but I also respect your time and entertainment. But I don't know. I personally don't mind when this podcast is long, because I listen to 12 of them. So the longer, the better. Typically when they end very quickly, I'm like, no, that's it. I'm not home yet. But yeah, anywho, we digress. So Combrei, the way this deck works really honestly is however you want it to. If you have an aggressive start, you can get in there and keep pressuring your opponent and put squeeze the screws to them. If you end up having a slower start, you can just kind of wait till you hit that 6 power so you can start activating your Spiketail Kirin. Of course, we did mention earlier the Wilderness Refuge, right? Is that what it is? Wilderness Refuge. So that is a way. And of course, Teleport. Those are another combat tricks that are perfectly okay to take. Teleport is extremely potent in this format and in this archetype, because you are able to, for example, reset your Spiketail Kirin, reset your Seasoned Drill Master, reset your to a lesser extent, because it's a lot more expensive, your Grodov's Favored. But obviously bouncing units with weapons. If you have several Intrepid Longhorns and you have your Grodas Favored, you're going to start swinging with them. Your opponent's going to try to triple, double, and triple block to get them off the board, and Teleport can easily deal with enough one of the blockers to allow you to get a 2-for-1 off your opponent. So Teleport's really strong as well. I have some more equipment, but that was going to go into the Legion Muster deck, so I won't mention it here. But yeah, this deck obviously goes really well with combat tricks. It's usual, like it's just a good stuff deck. There's no major, hey, look, I'm being super cute type thing, but the deck plays out. And then obviously, if you have flyers or you have Kodash Sees All, it is completely okay to simply try to stall the board, keep yourself alive until those bigger win cons or whatever legendaries you draft come into play and allow you to kind of steal the win. And once again, going back to our Longtail Cavalry, that card is great in this format and this deck as well because you have such large units. So taking even your Wanderlust or Swaying Sea Kyrans, or obviously your Grodas Favorites, slapping a +2/+1 and flying weapon on them means that they're going to end the game in short order. So what you end up seeing is a lot of the times your Longtail Cavalry just gets in for the beat and they get in for 8-10 damage before your opponent finally either deals with them or silences them because they're afraid to give one of your bigger units the flying. So yeah, you guys have anything to add about this archetype?
It's just such a consistent and powerful deck. It takes a lot in those early picks for me not to just kind of default into this in this format, honestly.
Yeah. So actually, that leads into a good question. Where are you guys at in the format? Like, are you still, spiking, trying to get your rating up? And if you draft Combre 5 times in a row, you draft Combre 5 times in a row. Are you guys starting to get to the point where you're trying to explore a little bit and hit those niche archetypes and try to see what else you can do?
See, I did all my exploration early, and at this point, I think I just want to win. So, I mean, I'm obviously considering what's open as the draft is going. Like, I mean, you cannot force Combre if you don't get any of these cards that we're talking about. And be successful, I don't think. But man, if you have even just a moderate amount of these cards in your Combre deck, I think the power level and consistency is there, and you'll just have a good run on average.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Darth?
Yeah, it's like the safe picks. Like if you want to be consistent with your draft, Combre is the way to go. I haven't really experimented with like the Skycrack deck at all, because I'm afraid of just tanking a draft entirely, like losing rank points. I know that's a sad thing to say, but ever since they made it like actually worth something to be in the top 100, you mentioned this on stream a little bit, it like kind of takes the fun out of it a little bit. So I'm trying to balance having fun with drafting and then also the stress that I put on myself on trying to finish in the top 100 now. I don't know. It seems kind of silly, really.
Just keep draft with us. It doesn't affect your QCP points at all.
Yeah, no, I need to do that for sure. Having something come up, I swear.
I straight up decided that I was just gonna keep drafting regardless, and if I stay top 100, I do. If I don't, I don't. And I'm not gonna start a second account because I have no problem spending money on this game, but I'm also a completionist, and so drafting on another account to me, like every time I open up a legendary or every time I get an achievement or something, I'm like, that's stuff I could have been earning on my real account,
Yeah, it's like I've had the same inner monologue and debate with myself. Like, no, I want it all on one account. My dog agrees with me.
Sweet. But that'll be something we talk about. We might bring that up in another podcast. Just do strictly how we feel about all the organized play and stuff like that, and relevance to drafting and stuff. But I think that might be a show we could talk about in depth on our own. Sure. So we might add that to the roster. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this breakdown. So today we covered once again Combre, Stonescar Sack, and Rakano Onis. Hopefully this will help you. Once again, the big disclaimer to this is that you want to make sure that you're drafting what is open and what is good for your seat or your lane, not necessarily forcing something. And the good thing about the uncommons being so powerful in this format as a whole is that they are pretty key identifiers on when something is open. Typically, I like to wait till, like I mentioned earlier, somewhere around the lines of pick 3 to 6 is typically where I look to see what is open. Reason being is when you go too late in the pack and you get past something, sometimes it's just the cards aren't there. So every once in a while, for example, I don't know if you guys have experienced this, you'll see, for example, a Grodov's favored like 10th pick. And you're like, what is this still doing here?
I've gotten one last pick multiple times. I don't understand.
I don't understand what's happening. Yeah.
That's a splashable card. I don't care if you're not playing any other time cards.
Yeah.
Last pick? What was the second to last card?
Like fate telling you to splash that one, right?
Right.
We're just gonna say it's people that do not listen to Farming Eternal and Eternal Journey. That's what it is.
It's got to be.
It's bronze drafters. All right, so that's it, which is gonna take us to our next segment, which is what's the play. So let me go ahead and pull this up on screen for the people tuning in on the YouTubes. And I will break it down once again. I think I had pretty good success last time breaking it down both sides of the board, or the symmetrically. I don't know. Anyway, we'll go into it.
I think it works out better that way too. It's easier to digest it if you don't have it in front of you, which is how I usually do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's easier to take in with just the vocals on that.
Okay.
That way.
Sweet. Okay. So starting off, this is a limited once again, just standard. All right. So our opponent is at 0 of 4 power with Time, Justice, Primal. We are at 4 of 4 power with Justice, Primal, Shadow. Our opponent is at 23 life. We are at 20 life. Our opponent has a 3/5 Yeti Evangel, the blue one, with, I don't know what they have on it, to be honest with you, but it's a 3/5 with Overwhelm. So you guys can figure out what that is. It's escaping me right now. I can't think of any weapon. Oh wait, it comes with Overwhelm. So it's probably a Dirk? No,
the ping pong sticker.
Oh, there you go. Yes.
Yeah.
There you go. Yes. There you go. And then they have
Slingshot.
they have a 2/3 Misery Walker. We have the 2/2 Tinker with Endurance. All right. Our opponent has 3 cards in hand, and we have 4 cards in hand. In hand, we have a Changey Stick, a Kodosh Evangel, the 2/2 green, the green 2/2 with Lifesteal, the Elder Meditant, I believe it's Elder Meditant. Anyways, the 2/2 for 4 and a Primal that twist 3, draw you a card, and it has Aegis. And then the Huru Smuggler, which is the 3/2 that when Onslaught, it gives itself and you Aegis, which we did attack. I'll go ahead and cover that. We did attack because it's a free attack. Our opponent's tapped out. They attacked with both their units, and our guy has Endurance. So we swung. So now I will add this. Let's go ahead and go to the market. Okay, because obviously we can play our smuggler here. So I will say what we have in the market, and then we'll discuss what our picks are. So let me pull that up on screen as well. Those are the show notes. So many windows. Okay, in our market, we have a Edict of Linray, which is the one that it stuns an enemy unit, and then obviously if it is fire or time, it turns into a 0/1 Totemite and then stuns it. We have Caltrops, which is the 4 Justice Curse that gives a -5 attack to a unit, and then the enemy player can't play cards with the name of the cursed unit. Typically, that isn't very important in limited, but also in this format, since people try to stay in their lanes, you can potentially get several of, like, for example, the uncommons that we talked about. Moving on, we have Stalwart Shield, which is the +1/+3 and Endurance weapon for 4. Combre Magister, which is the 5/2 cleric at common for 5 justice, and Empower, invulnerable to damage this turn. And finally, we have a Token of Knowledge, which is the depleted power for, and you can choose either Time, Primal, or Shadow. Of note, we do not have Time in our deck. It is simply in there for the Primal and Fire. So, Johnholio, Why don't, actually, Darth, why don't you start us off? What would be your line of play here?
So without that, the timer thing going down, which always adds a level of, I don't know what the heck I'm doing here, but I think now that I have time to look at this, I think I would put out the smuggler, and then I think I would trade the evangel for the power and get the power to put it out, or the 4-drop 2/2. Basically, my end game being trying to get to the changey stick, is what I want to do. And you could put the changey stick on the 3/2 because it'll have Aegis, so that's a really hard threat if you don't get to your 7th power. I'm just not sure which one I would probably do the 2/2 because then I can twist the 4-drop and give it 3 power, and it allows me to block the 2/3 on the ground at least later on.
Yeah, and of note, the 2/2 that draws your card is going to have Aegis as well, so it could be a change stick target as well to draw you an additional card. So one of the issues I had with this is like I wasn't necessarily sure if I actually wanted to put anything in the market because even the 2/2, the lifesteal on the Evangel could come into play as well. So that was one of the reasons why I thought this was a very interesting one because there's several lines. It's not just an easy play the smuggler. John, what about you?
Yeah, this is a tough one. The market really adds a lot of decision points here, right? So like you say, free attack. So we've got the onslaught already on the merchant, and it's our best stats available in hand. So I'm thinking I'm gonna play the merchant, and so I'm thinking like the opponents just got better units than we have access to at the moment. I'm honestly considering swapping the Elder Meditant for the Combre Magister here. Thinking I can develop the changey in a future turn on either the lifesteal unit or probably the smuggler. But I mean, having a 3/3 lifesteal flyer is looking pretty good to me right now. So I'm thinking swap the Meditant for the Magister and hope to hit an undepleted power. Because that Magister can trade with their best unit. And then we have options as far as continuing our game plan of smashing their face.
Mm-hmm. See,
so far off from doing the 7 power on the changey stick for its most powerful mode. So I'm not even really looking at that at this time.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. For me, changey stick is a removal spell. Like, unless you can win the game, I 98% of the time play it for its spellcraft and not just as a +1/+1 flying. Though I will admit sometimes that is correct to do and it will win you the game. But I also, because of the fact that it's 7, I try in my experiences not to play towards that unless I absolutely have to because it's so far off. And I could see where Darth decided to go get the token to make sure we can get up to that 7, but it still leaves you 2 power shy from it at the very least. Something to have note, because of our colors, which are Makar, not Makar, sorry, Linray, right? Anyway, because of our colors, we are in curse colors. So that's another reason why Caltrops...
Linray?
Linray? Yeah, there you go.
So that is so Caltrops is not only a removal spell, but it also gives us the potential for curse synergies as well. So I think, and I honestly don't remember what I ended up doing, to be completely honest with you, but I am not actually a fan of Combre Magister. I think it's lackluster because it always trades down for me in my experiences. I put it in there because it was just an extra unit, and why not fill up my market just in case. I do like Stalwart Shield, but it's not really going to do much in this board, especially having a better weapon in the form of changey stick. So I do think it is correct here to play the Smuggler just because we get an additional Aegis unit, even though it's not the most power efficient play over playing the Meditant. Also, the Meditant does mean that we take a whole turn off to play it. And like I agree, I do value the lifesteal, especially having a changey stick in hand. So for me, I think what I might end up doing here is playing the Smuggler and actually shipping the Meditant to grab Caltrops, because Caltrops gives us something to do if we do not hit our power that will affect the board and could potentially have multiple upsides. Once again, I do feel like a lot of decks, because of the way the draft format is, a lot of decks are able to have multiples of their uncommons if they draft them aggressive enough. It's not unheard of to see people drafting 3-4 Misery Walkers, 2-3 Artisans, and so the potential. Not saying that we're going to do it on the Misery Walker, but even throwing a Caltrops on the Misery Walker not only shuts off their lifesteal, but also has the bonus of potentially stopping future Misery Walkers, which is lackluster. Like, don't get me wrong, that's not really something you're counting on. I think at the end of the day, I think I probably would still take it, because we're trading a slow-ish card for a removal spell that we could still play right now. So should we miss our power, we could just Caltrops their 5-drop, or once again their 2 or 3-drop. So I think that would be the line I take, and just hopefully get to Changey Stick. But I can also see the play for trading in the Evangel, just because the Meditant can draw us cards later on, and potentially an additional card should we play Changey Stick on it specifically.
Yeah, I really don't think there's one just correct line here. There's just so many options.
That's three different things right there that we did.
Caltrops is definitely my second choice here off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
I was hard pressed to not say that, honestly.
That was the other one I was thinking about too. And then you can like just hope to get back to life with the Changey Stick on the Evangel, like, because you're gonna take some hits, right? You know, so because they can attack into the 3/2 still, you know.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's a threat. Like, you do have 5 power on the board, and so it comes up to personal preference. Some people will not attack into that. Some people will.
Yeah, you do present a double block.
So that is something. One thing that literally just came to mind. Obviously, our listeners didn't know this because I didn't call out the specific influence numbers, but our opponent is 1 time, 1 justice, 4 primal. So it makes me feel like they're heavy primal, which could lead to heavy curses. So that actually opens up the door for Stalwart Shield being a little bit better as well, to potentially break stuff like freeze effects or permafrost from Decronus, or just straight up permafrost.
Yeah.
So there is that option as well, kind of being a little preemptive. So there's definitely multiple lines there for sure. Let us know in the comments below what you guys would do, or hop in the chat. We all hang out. Luckily, Darth and Johnholio definitely blessed me with their presence on the stream, so you guys can come in there and let us know what you think about what's the play and what you would do.
Yeah, we'd be happy to talk about it.
All right, guys, sweet. So almost there, home stretch. That leads us to our constructed corner. So I did kind of drop this on you guys, not last minute, but as far as that. So I do have a deck ready. I have only played with this deck a little bit. I actually test piloted it initially, and I like this deck. This is another one that's coming to us by Death3366, very avid brewer on the Discord. So you guys, if you have any brews you want to talk to him about, you could definitely join the Discord link down below and chat with him in our constructed channel. Him and Sakarnan are always talking about different brews that they're making just on the precipice of competitive. They do that. One of the stipulations I have for Death when he makes decks to bring up on the show is that they have a positive win record unranked, and this one specifically went 15-10 out of 20 games. He did say that it is a little rough. It is a Feln Elves deck, and it's slightly combo, slightly aggressive, and the deck is a lot of fun. I will say I'm going to read off the list to it, but I am not opposed to you adding Linray or Lish. What's the 3/3? Always the 3/3 with shift that makes 3 2/1s. It's no, it's not Linray. We just talked about it. Vishni, right? That's
yes,
about right.
That's it.
Let me double check here. Yep, Vishni. Okay, you can add that. I ended up doing that because I was missing like 2 of the legendaries, so I swapped them. But the premise of this deck is essentially just getting. It's kind of a very mid-rangey deck where you have some aggressive units, but you're getting some value out of Haunting Scream and drawing extra cards through your unit to outvalue your opponent. And then it being elves means Zende the Heartbinder is a 4 of, And I'll just start off with her. She's a 4/4 for 6 Elf Serpent. Double Feln, so double Primal, double Shadow, Flying, and Pledge. Pledge is always nice to have as a 6-drop. So if you do have it in your opening hand, you could ship it, or you can pledge it. And Summon, play an elf with cost 4 or less from your Void, which is pretty much every other elf in your deck, -1 that we'll talk about in a moment. If you have a Relic, play 2 instead. And let me tell you, this card is absolutely value town. I don't know if you guys have played against this card. I have, and even when I played it, getting 2 units back from your Void is absolutely game ending sometimes if it's the right 2 units. So
Definitely.
in limited, obviously it's a complete bomb if you draft a couple of them, but let me break it down real quick. It is 1 secret passage, 2 seek power, 2 annihilate, 3 desecrate, 4 haunting scream, 2 ice bolt, 4 Linrai Hideaway, 2 Tavia Lethrai Raid Leader, 4 Blight Pass Smuggler, 3 Direwood Beastcaller. There's a little throwback there for you. Rista Akantha's Herald, 4 Wisdom of the Elders, 3 Lethrai Soothsayers, 3 Rindra the Dusk Blade, 3 Shadowlands Border Scout, and 3 Elvish Swindler. For Zendi, the Heartbinder, and then the power base is 3 Primal Sigil, 4 Shadow Sigil, 2 Cabal Standard, 4 Cabal Waystone, 4 Crest of Cunning, 4 Feln Insignia, 3 Seed of Cunning, or 4 Seed of Cunning, and then the market includes a Hailstorm, a Lethrai Dead Drop, Burglarize in Cold Blood, and a Champion of Cunning. So as far as the breakdown, there is a more elaborate breakdown for it. Death did do a write-up on it, so I will have the link to this deck in the show notes. But overall, he found a little bit of trouble going up against the Feln Mirror, or not Mirror, but just the Feln deck, just because they have so much removal that it's hard to get the card engine going. But if you can land a Zendi, then it's a pretty easy win. It depends if they are able to land their champion, how long it stays on the board, etc. And then, surprisingly, any Justice decks that run counter market stuff like Embargo Officer and things like that, or maybe the Pony Snatcher, things like that, he had a little bit of trouble with. Not quite sure why, but it could have just been the matchups in those 5 games. But overall, this deck has the ability to really capitalize on early aggression. Lethrai Hideaway does give you a unit and trigger the Relic ability for Zindi, but it also gives you the chance to pump up all your others. So if you have any extra power, you could pay 3 and give another elf a +2/+0 attack. Mind you, it stays on them. So if you play this on one of your elves that are sub or 3 cost or below, when you hunting screen them, they're going to have flying, charge, and then still have that pump from earlier. Things like Tavia and Rista and Shadowland Border Scout can be your card draw engines out playing your opponent. And then obviously Direwood Beastcaller on its own sometimes can absolutely backbreak a game should you be able to get that in early. So yeah, the deck is a lot of fun to play. I did enjoy playing it, I'm not gonna lie. So if elves or Feln are your thing, I definitely consider you should give it a shot and see if you can climb up the ladder with it. Do you guys have any experience with any kind of elf decks? I know in Expedition there's a mono shadow elf deck that ran me over in the ECQ, not gonna lie. I can't remember if they had a good draw or I had a bad draw or they just played better. All of 3 of those options are completely justifiable. But how about you guys?
I've not really played with this type of deck, but I've played it against something like this plenty of times, and it can be surprisingly powerful. It has a lot of, like you say, recursion and value. So it's a good, solid mid-range archetype, I think.
Yeah, I don't have much experience with elves, but that deck looks like it would be fun.
Yeah, I think for me, I would probably swap out the Borderlands Scout because minus the Hideaway, there's really no ways to pump it. And honestly, everyone knows the value of that card. So it normally dies way early. It does have Pledge, so it gives you a little bit of a cushion. I'd probably maybe go down to 2. And obviously Elvish Swindler just got buffed to a 3/4 now, so that might be significantly better from a 2/3. So that card's probably better now. And like I said, I did like running Vishni. I think there's some synergies. I could easily see a Dark Return or Immortalized in this deck as well to add some additional recursion to the Haunting Scream. But Haunting Scream is really where you make your money, especially with that 1 secret passage. It'll help you generate a little bit of evasion on your units to get in there where your opponent didn't think you would. But yeah, it's a fun deck. Like I said, I probably have about 7 to 10 games under my belt with it that one day that I played with it, and it was fun. So just something different for people that they if they don't want to build the generic mid-range or control film, or they like elves.
It's a throne deck?
Yeah, this one's a throne deck, yeah, for sure.
It's not too far off from Expedition, though. I definitely know Haunting Scream, but a lot of those other cards are in Expedition.
Yeah. This was actually where I started for Expedition, believe it or not, was in like a Feln elf type build. Not nearly this yet. I was still kind of going more aggressive, but there's some value here. And like I said, I did in the ECQ as a Motto Shadow deck, and they ran, everything was an elf, and they did some work. I was very impressed with the deck, not gonna lie. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. So I think that's gonna do it. We'll call it a show here. Let me make sure on our show notes that I covered everything and we're not missing anything. Nope, that's it. Do you guys have anything else to add today about our archetypes or any draft discussion?
No, nothing in particular.
Good luck with your next draft cues, everyone.
Sweet. All right, guys. Well, that's going to call it a show. So, Darth Herman, how can people get a hold of you should you so choose to allow them to?
Well, a couple discords. Your Discord's a good place. If anyone has any questions regarding anything limited, it's a good place to go. And yeah, just in your chat. I'm usually there.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Johnholio, where can people find you, friend?
Yeah, same. I hang out in yours and a few other Discords. Pretty much available most of the time there. And then, yeah, also your Twitch chat as well. I don't think I ever miss a Jedi stream. Always a good time.
I'm honored by that. So honored. I really am. Like, I'm still a small streamer, and I hope whenever I become a big streamer that I still feel that way. But it's still great to have fans. Like, I absolutely love it.
It's always a good time. I mean, it's just such a good group of people that are kind of regulars there. And then, you know, you're knowledgeable and fun at the same time. So it's just a great time.
I think people just like watching me laugh at my own punt. I think that's what it is. It makes them feel so human. They're like, oh, I guess my punt earlier today wasn't nearly as bad as his. Yeah, see, exactly. Your silence tells me all I need to know.
No, it was just breaking up there all of a sudden for reason. I couldn't quite hear you what you were saying.
I honestly had the same issue.
Oh, really? Oh, I was just
yeah, for reals. No, I might have responded with silence anyways.
Oh, I just said people just show up to watch me punt because they're like, oh, the misplay I made earlier today is nowhere near as bad as what he just did.
Oh my gosh, it did it the same part again. What the heck?
It's like it's not the cast is not allowing you to admit that you're punting, I think.
Oh no, I wonder if it's the whole misplay trademark thing, so it's muting me. The sensors are out.
Oh, somehow.
Oh, that's great.
Has control of stuff.
I'm sure it won't be cut out for you since you're recording your audio.
I kind of wish it did though, so then the people listening know it's real. Oh, that would have been so epic. Well,
no,
John,
it was just me there.
John, what's up?
I said when you stream, you're gonna punt. It's gonna happen. Like, we appreciate your stream, and then we appreciate your punts in a way because, I mean, even the best players are gonna punt when you're talking to chat. I mean, Cass does it, Mum did it, like everyone does that. So it's just hard, you know.
It's very difficult.
Yeah, the last one I can remember is I'm sitting there like, cool, we're gonna draw this and we're gonna play this specific sigil next turn, and then we're gonna be fine. So I draw my card and then immediately play like the wrong sigil, and I'm like, yeah, guys. So then, Yoda facepalm.
Right.
I was like, never mind. We'll just go ahead and pass it back to our opponent. Yeah, anywho, thanks guys. I appreciate that. But speaking of streaming, Johnholio, you stream as well, don't you?
Yeah, whenever my setup allows me to. It's typically about once a month, you know.
Fair. Okay.
Definitely not a full-time kind of streamer like you. But I like to get out there and have some fun every once in a while.
Let us know when you do, for sure.
Sure. Yeah, I'll post a notification in Jedi's Discord. Probably Farming Eternal Discord as well.
Sounds like a plan. All right, guys, you can catch me on Twitter and YouTube. Once again, EJ the Podcast. Definitely follow me on Twitter. I normally post there when I'm going live, as well as some random stuff. Haven't got enough followers where I start posting every day, even though I like to. I want to start posting, mulligan, like hands, whether you mulligan or not, or redraw or not, correction, and what's the pick and stuff like that, especially for cubes. So follow me on there, YouTube, when you can catch all my content offline and online there as well. And of course, it's a good way for me to know exactly what's going on, because people that are watching include this podcast. I'm a number cruncher kind of guy. And then you can catch me streaming live every Sunday, Monday, Tuesday at twitch.tv/Jedi_EJ, where you can find these fine fellow gentlemen there as well, hanging out in the chat, keeping people busy. But yeah, and then of course, join the Discord like they mentioned as well, like great guys. Links are going to be down below. I don't think there's a way. Is there a way to give yourself like an actual like name in Discord, or are you just stuck with the generic invite thing?
I'm relatively new to Discord, but I think you probably have to have some kind of extra level of your own channel, like some kind of paid channel thing.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's something like that.
Oh, okay, cool. Let's hurry. We're at 2 hours, so we might be able to finish this at exactly 2 hours. Awesome. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Tune in next week where we break down some more Flames of Xulta archetypes. But until then, as always, happy gaming. You guys can say bye if you want. We got 40 seconds.
Bye, y'all. See you next time.
Bye. I'll see you guys next time.